Hi, everyone. You've probably noticed, again, I'm not Anthony Pico. I'm Sue Hillyard. He's a bit under the weather today and has decided to sit out today's episode of Astrospeak. So I'm stepping in to give the usual introduction and then do whatever I can to support our remaining co-host, Michaela Villiers-Kendall, with keeping the conversation moving. So here we go. Welcome to Astrospeak. This is a chat show formatted to feature astrologers arguing, cooperating, agreeing, and disagreeing, inspiring each other, and sharing their knowledge. We will be asking questions and asking for feedback and opinions, but please remember to keep it short, pithy, to the point, and succinct. We wish to have a lively and active show, and all of these questions involve things I'm pretty sure all of us have experienced. Remember, play nice and no pontificating. Today we will have panelists Nura, Rachelle, Michael Pinchera, Verena Borell, possibly Ryan Evans, and Robin Grabfelder. Okay, Michaela, shall we start?
Yeah, let's go. Hi, everybody. Great to see you all. And so we're going to concentrate on the transits and lunations for the first part of the year, where we are already in our individual experiences and collective world events. And obviously the big day is the ingress of Pluto to Aquarius for the first time. And it will go into Aquarius. It goes into Aquarius today. What time does it actually go into? Got a time there?
It was about maybe 8 hours ago.
It was at 5:15 p.m. 5:15 a.m. PST and Central European Time 1:15 p.m.
Really?
Yeah. So just almost exactly 8 hours ago.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
I woke up at that time.
Feel the vibes?
Yeah, it woke me up.
Did it?
Yeah, it did.
Wow.
Yeah. So Verena, you were going to introduce Pluto, the big introduction here, the big entrance.
The elephant in the room, as she called it.
The elephant. Yeah. I think it's a bit more than an elephant, but sort of a mammoth, T-Rex.
Larger than T-Rex.
Let's hope not. No, let's not go there.
I think it's more a unicorn or something.
Oh, that's nice.
I would like to phrase it that way.
Yeah, let's stick with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could talk more than 1 hour just about this transit, and I'm sure you all agree with that. But maybe just for now, in the moment, to just look at it for now, it's the first dip of Pluto into Aquarius after its time in Capricorn, and Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn on June 11th. And then we have this interesting dynamic dance of Pluto between Aquarius and Capricorn for the next 2 years. And what I experience at the moment in the field, in my own life, in my client's life, in the world, and I'm sure we will talk more about that later, is really that we are in between worlds, in between lives, in between eras. And we are, on the one hand, the whole last year, I would say since the lunar nodes moved into Scorpio and Taurus, there was so much deep work, deep healing, purging, digging deep. And now we are in a phase, since the beginning of the year, I feel until now, it's really a phase of the preparation for the new. And we are now in between, and it's so much about release. The Pisces season and Saturn's ingress into Pisces was such a huge energy of release, of grief, of cutting loose ends to Mars square to Neptune. And now it's really about, we have this heavy Aries energy in the field, which is really reflecting that it's about trying new ways, how we want to be, how we want to live, what world and what new lives we want to create. And this is just a pre-taste. Now this space between March until June with Pluto in Aquarius, it's really like a little pre-taste. And I think that together with the Aries energy, it's really about, on the one hand, letting go of the old, grieving the old, giving ourselves the time to grieve the old, and on the other hand, being courageous enough to try new ways on an individual and on a collective level. And I think that on the one hand, it's really exciting. It's really exciting to ask ourselves, what is my future life? What is my future version? And to realize, oh, wow, my future version is already here. And on the other hand, it's so challenging for our beautiful body, for our nervous system, because even though on a conscious level, we might embrace changes or we might be open for changes, I think it's always the thing with Pluto transits, right? One part of us wants to collaborate, and the other part is afraid and scared in regard to the new. And I think that one really important thing at the moment is and Venus conjunct the North Node is a reflection of that, and some other asteroid goddess Ceres is still retrograde. Here are many things in the chart that I see as indicators how important it is to find grounding and to regulate our nervous system. And Pluto in Aquarius is about the nervous system. So this will be a huge topic for the next decades. But I stop here.
That's really well observed. I mean, it really is tough on the nervous system, isn't it? You can even feel it sometimes, like it's such high vibrations even. But it's at least it's not as oppressive as it was before. As you said before, last year was really hard, and it seemed like there was a lot of reprocessing of grief. And into this transition, it seemed like that had to be gone through before transitioning. And it's like we're at the next stage now, the transition, which is, such a long process anyway, isn't it? But yeah, that was really hard because it seemed like memories were coming back. It's suddenly a memory would get you, and God, you'd get pulled down again. And so that does seem lighter now, at least in that respect. Does everyone feel that? Yeah.
Yeah, and it felt like it was never going to end.
Yes, awful. But knowing, I mean, the astrology helps so much, doesn't it? And knowing that this is a transition and that wasn't going to last, but you just really had to go with it. No good bottling it up and saying, no, don't want to go there. You just had to go there. And once you go with it, like a roller coaster,
Well, with everything moving into air, it makes us feel more restless and ready to want to move and get things moving.
Yeah, exactly. It's so fast, isn't it? It's like suddenly everything's speeded up. I don't know if you felt that too. It's like, whoa, it is like a roller coaster, in fact. It's like, whoa. Yeah, but if you resist, that's when it's difficult. It's just not resisting. It's so you have to not resist it. But so hard, as you said, Verena, because our impulse as well is to we want it, but on the other hand, it's scary, but
I think a key might be to really not resist it, but trust that our natural pace is divine timing. Yes. And I experienced when Saturn moved into Pisces on the day, and since that, really a new concept around time and what time actually is, and really this deep trust that when I trust the rhythm of my body and when I trust the rhythm of the natural flow of evolution, that is enough. And we don't have to, shadow side of Aries, constantly push. We don't have to push into the new. The new is coming.
Exactly. exactly. And as you say, Saturn in Pisces, it is that letting go and just trusting. You know, like Pink had that new album out, Trustful. And it's funny how albums and, you know, music and films, as I said before, but, you know, they seem to, obviously, they sort of, show what's going on in the with the planets and the transits and everything. So they express it. So yeah, it is like that, just trusting.
I think Pluto squaring the nodes also is a message to trust in their evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, that is going to intensify with the nodes going back towards Aries, Libra, and then, of course, Pluto is going to retrograde. So it's as though we have to go back to a certain point as well at the end of Capricorn. And that's a very powerful end, isn't it? It's like the anarchic point degree. So, and the nodes are going to be there as well. So it's like, what?
Addressing unfinished business.
Yeah, we're going to have to revisit. Unfortunately, what are we going to revisit though? I mean, there are some, yeah.
I think that, I mean, that Pluto is a slow-moving planet, and that Pluto transits last so long. I mean, it's just a reflection that what is Pluto? Pluto is our soul's evolution. It's just a reflection that these deep transformations and this deep purging and evolution processes, they take time. And so I think one of the really important messages at the moment that we allow ourselves the time for these changes, so that we change not only because I think that is a little bit the shadow, or that can be a shadow of Aquarius, that we try to lift off the ground, but it's really to come into come into evolution with our body, with our soul, holistically. And I think that there is so much with Pluto squaring the nodes, Robin, as you're saying that, and unfinished business. I think that, the cosmos reflects that there is something about we are in a long phase, individually and collectively, of deconditioning, so that we can come together with Pluto and Aquarius, really reclaim our soul self, our natural soul self, before any conditioning, and can, on a collective level too, and on an individual level, create not only new lives, new worlds, but really birthing new systems where we can be not in hierarchical, patriarchal, oppressive systems, but really in new systems, in new communities, where we come together as individuals that are all, that have the same rights, and
part of a community instead of a hierarchy. And the age of empire, as we've said before.
Being aware of our interconnectedness.
Exactly. But it's as though the groundwork has to be done. And groundwork, you know, Uranus is part of that too. It's like a lot of groundwork. It really interesting too that, you know, there's from on a collective point of view, the events that are happening all over the world, like we're having a bank crisis, obviously. That's Uranus again, the old Uranus in Taurus still. And obviously we've got Venus squaring, as you say, squaring the nodes. Venus squaring, and it's on the nodes, isn't it?
No, it's on the north node.
It's on the north node. So we've got Venus involved, and we've got Pluto now, which obviously is in orb of the, you know, and they're going together, the nodes. So we've got this everything to do with our security, isn't it? So it's as though the rug's being pulled from under our feet, but in order for, as you say, for us to find new ground. But
and
so
to treat the earth.
Yes, exactly. Now, what's interesting too is that Pluto was last in Aquarius at the time of the French Revolution. And we're just almost having a French Revolution here. It's bizarre. Yeah. There's huge protests started in Paris, and now they've gone all over the country. And poor old Macron, I sort of feel sorry for him, but He should have addressed the nation. He knows there's this revolutionary spirit that has been since the French Revolution, that the people feel they have this power and that politicians mustn't overstep it, because if they overstep it, then they're in trouble. And he should have known that. And he should have addressed them and said, look, this is necessary. And please, can we do this? And instead he didn't. He just put it through. And that's what's really caused all the problems. So also Saturn was there in Pisces as well at the start of the French Revolution. So it's like a mirroring effect going on again. Because we had that with the, go on.
No, I think it's interesting because with Saturn and Pisces, we can have this dissolution of systems, of structures, dissolving of structures, and then Pluto in Aquarius. But I think when we now look at the French Revolution, and I think that history does not repeat itself because we have grown and evolved. Sure. But I think that a shadow with Pluto in Aquarius can be that people and individual souls are not ready for freedom. So because I think when we look at Capricorn and Aquarius, there is this when we become our own authority and align with our values and with our own integrity, Capricorn, then we can be free and we don't need oppressive systems. And I think that now that people are stepping more and more into a new consciousness and a new maturity, we don't need any longer, hopefully, we don't need any longer oppressive systems.
Yeah, but we have sort of, as you say, we've got to make such a transition before we're ready for that, because we have lived with oppressive systems for at least the last 7,000 years. It's a long time. And so it's a big shift from the patriarchy of 7,000 years that we've got to, I mean, the revolution too, that time was also the industrial age began. And that's sort of what we're confronting now. We're confronting the problems that arose from then, because, like agriculture started like 12,000 years ago, but then it was in the industrial age that we started with all this industry that now has given us so much, but we're now confronted with the problems it's produced, which is the climate change, obviously, and
also destroying our health and our environment.
So much. I mean, it is sort of overwhelming, isn't it? Because it's like we sort of were in denial for so long, weren't we? And it's like we sort of knew, but we were in denial. But now it's like whoosh. And it's like, God, it's really in our faces. And maybe it's since the internet, obviously that has helped to spread it around.
Well,
but
we have to consider too that human consciousness does evolve and change bit by bit. We're not the same as we were, several hundred years ago.
Thankfully.
So,
thankfully, no guillotines or
right.
But it is still the same transition. It's like we are further on in the transition. Yes, we're further on, and now we have new problems, but they do stem from the same problems as that. It's just a new transition phase.
Yes.
And I think that here maybe even astrology has a role to play. So I think because as you all said, we are deconditioning from structures internally and externally that we experienced for lifetimes, really for lifetimes, when we look at our souls' past lives.
Yeah, that's funny. I was just going to say that.
And I think that these transitions and these deconditioning processes and these deep healing processes, and what is interesting is asteroid goddess Hygeia is conjunct Pluto at the moment. So she is in 6-degree Aquarius, and Hygeia is about healing. And I think that here's even we need to make this transition, to make this evolution on an individual and on a collective level, and not dip into forms like French Revolution. I think we need all to do
not completely
to rise our consciousness. And I think that astrology is here very important, and we as astrologers can help the individual soul to heal, to look at their shadows, especially with evolutionary astrology, to do the deep purging and to do the deep healing work, and to become self-aware, self-conscious, and therefore act consciously. And I think that we as astrologers, that astrology can, or this is a vision that I have for astrology with Pluto and Aquarius, is that we as evolutionary astrologers, build more and more community with other healing practitioners. Because I think Pluto and Aquarius is so much about trauma healing. And I think that it might be important over the next years and decades to build communities with other healers, body workers, somatic therapists, and so on, to really support the individual soul within these really processes.
Absolutely. But as you say, past lives and all of that, imagine the trauma that we are processing trauma as well from past lives. So it's not even just the trauma from events now or in the past or our present. It's actually past life traumas that it's like, this has to be let go of now, or it has to be understood, put in a different context, a different perspective, and now understand what happened, have a new view of the past in order to go forward to the future with a new view. And that's obviously the big picture, is the new age of Aquarius, which we're heading towards, but we're still caught at the end of Pisces. And so before we leave Pisces, it's like Pluto's come in now to bring us in that Aquarian energy of transformation in order to prepare us for the new age of Aquarius. So
and especially with Pluto squaring the nodes, just what you said.
Yes.
So just skip step. We have to do the healing and the deep purging process so that we can go into the future.
So have all that come up, and realize trauma, it does get triggered, and denial's for a purpose. I mean, we have denial mechanisms in order to protect our minds and protect us. So we only can release trauma memory very slowly, because if we were confronted with it too quickly, obviously that's even dangerous for us. And there is so much to process. So we have to be patient, but we have to realize as it comes up, okay, keep processing. And astrology is a wonderful thing to let us know to do that. And that's why, everyone should know it, because it just helps so much. I can't imagine now not knowing that and going through all of this. It's unthinkable, isn't it? Everyone.
That square to the nodes also represents the need to release and let go of old patterns.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that square to Pluto to the North Node, as of today, in about an hour and a half, the moon is going to join with that square exactly. So it's been square right before that. So you have this, the rethinking that Pluto and Aquarius is really, calling for us to do, right? And putting it into very practical daily life, that moon, and and really focusing on what is of value, right? The Taurian values, really based on the Aquarian ideals, and the Leo heart. And it's interesting that the midpoint between these two of that particular square is Neptune, and so what it's twofold. This Neptunian, Piscean, there's a whole spiritual stream coming in to help us, and at the same time all the lies, and confusion is really adding to the chaos you know, of that can be of Aquarius. And
Yeah.
then, you know, then that is also, Pluto is also in conjunct to Mars. So there's this adjustment between what is living in the unconscious and in the conscious will. You know, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah,
and
I
that,
think they're
that
alive. Oh,
yeah, and that Mars is square that Neptune. So
yeah.
you know, it's
Information too, Gemini, you know, the connection, information, distortion of information, and realizing now the horror that we have, how many lies there really have been. It's like we really are only just getting to know so much.
It's
like,
like
wow,
a light shining through the fog, trying to show us the delusions that have incorporated our perception of reality.
Yeah. And you sort of want to look away, but you can't look, and you mustn't look away, because it's really important that we do confront this now. But that does take all the support, as you were saying, Verena. It takes the support of others, of healers, of every sort of every tool we can reach for, really, to give us that feeling of support and faith. And that's the main thing, faith that you know, there is a sort of protection, that it's going to be okay, and this is what we have to do to get to the other side of all of this.
Yeah, and I think that we still have the North Node in Taurus, and Venus conjunct the North Node, and with asteroid goddess Juno there. And I mean, on Saturday, Mars, the lower octave of Pluto, will move into Cancer. Finally, we got it. I think that there is something about these yin energies, and about this, not only because on the one hand, I think the topic around values, because if you want to create a new world, you must know your values. But on the other hand, it's really coming back to the earth, to your body. And Mars moving into Cancer, really these soothing waves of Cancer, where you do all these intense healing work and go into the new, but take your time. I think Taurus is open for change, but in its own time, in its own pace. And I think going because we cannot create a new world from a place of stress and trauma. We can just create a new world when we are in a state of inner peace and calmness. And I think that is very important to be able to do this deep work that you just mentioned, Michaela, this there's really healing work from lifetimes.
Yes. So, you know, we can't expect it not to feel a little bit, a little bit like bungee jumping. Did you see that on TV? There was this guy who bungee jumped and the rope broke.
Oh my God.
Luckily, it was over water in Australia, but it was over the water. So he was okay. But, you know, really. So that's sort of what it feels like. Okay, is your rope going to... you bungee jumping, but your rope's going to stay. But hey, there was the water there. So Pisces. So hey. It was still all right, but you know, I'd have sued him, but he didn't, the guy. But he was glad to get his money back. Can you believe it? I mean, really? But anyway, but yeah, so I mean that, but the only thing about that Mars going into Cancer, it's going to quincunx Pluto, which is still, although it's going to Cancer, as you say, then that's a bit of comfort. It's like we're going out on a ledge still. It feels like, okay, but are we safe?
Yeah, I need to protect ourselves.
And we've got to trust that, yes, we're safe, have the faith, build the faith up. Yeah, wonderful. So, yeah, it's all there. Does anyone want to say any more about that, or... Shall we move
Something comes through for me around the Pluto back and forth into Capricorn and then back into Aquarius, where because we'll be moving into this very inspiring air energy of everybody's been ready and waiting for the new, and we've been like on the edge of our seats waiting for this, that sometimes we might have the tendency to kind of get ahead of ourselves or be so like enjoying the air that when Pluto dips back into Capricorn, we might be like, oh, like what was that? Like something like going back into like a wheel, like the grinding of the gears or something, like getting stuck in the wheel shaft and feeling like, okay, we get to go back to these shadow moments and kind of bringing in a practice of even just being aware of when that happens in the day to day, because I have a feeling it will start to come as we evolve. Our healing process also speeds up. So we can have these quantum healings, but it's like we might still have the residue and the remnants of certain triggers and things that come up. So it can almost like shock us. We're like, whoa, I'm upset about this thing. I didn't think that I got upset about that anymore.
Yeah,
So just
thought
kind of
that was over, gone through that, been there.
yeah. And then it's like just having the awareness, like, okay, I'm having a shadow moment. I know it's gone, but that might come up a little
That's
bit.
going to happen, and just keep going through it, stepping through. Yeah, as you know, Jeff Wolf Green had that wonderful analogy he made to the centipede. You know, with 100 legs, you've got 100 legs, so you just don't think about it because they just will move, and you just keep moving forward, and you're going to get there. But it is
I actually love what you just said, Nura, because I think with these Pluto back into Capricorn, and at that time we have then Jupiter entering Taurus. So there's another Earth energy. And I think that there is something around, there is this excitement with Pluto and Aquarius, and at the moment the Aries energy in the field and so on. But there is something around not spiritual bypassing or not going too far. So it's really about slowing down. Pluto goes retrograde into Capricorn. Jupiter moves into Taurus. So this, I always have this image of that we are building. Now we are preparing the ground, and then we are slowly building the new. And we cannot start with building the highest thing first. So we really have to
start with the foundations
and
that's what Pluto is about. And
the root and the healthy foundation.
But the government too, the patriarchy thing, it's as though we have to get pulled back to that. People have to learn that they maybe have trusted governments too much. We thought, okay, let the government get on with that, as long as we've got our comforts and our dreams, and that's fine, don't really want to know how it all works. And now we have to take more responsibility, really. We have to, and you do see it happening, especially with entrepreneurs all over the world thinking of new age systems and solutions to the problems. And so there's a lot of that going on, I think. And obviously the consciousness building, there is, you feel it, that as though you get a wave of, and I think that's so many around the world are becoming more and more conscious, and it's building a great wave up that just is seeing us through. And we have to keep remembering that, going through it.
Speaking of the consciousness factor, the Saturn in Pisces brings to mind the really learning how to deal with that, like how to deal with all of maybe the psychic influence or all of the awareness and the intuition, and finding a real grounded place to apply it, because that's been one of the fun things I think about, the Aquarius energy kind of opens us up to this possibility. And then the Saturn grounding in Pisces will help us really integrate it in a way that is not overwhelming. But we'll probably see that, when people kind of get this jolt of electricity or this jolt of energy or this new gift or this latent gift turns on. And now it's just all of a sudden time. Like I feel like a lot of people have actually been born for this ingress of Pluto into Aquarius, so that they may have in their life felt like they were waiting subconsciously for this moment. And like all of a sudden things turn on. But the Saturn in Pisces can kind of help us be like, okay, now I just reach out to teachers, reach out to the guides, to the healers who already have been practicing these things, so that you don't feel like you're this like live wire. Oh, I'm just seeing things. And
Aquarius live wire. You've got to be grounded.
Help find practical applications for inspiration. and visions.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Exactly. That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's really, it's just, we must expect the unexpected too, and realize, this is a ride that we're going to go through, and that I think we got more used to that energy, as you're all saying. We've got more used to this is where we're at, and we're on the ride, and we just got to go with it, as we said, and not resist it. I mean, also the mirroring of World War II is, we've talked about that before, because we've got Uranus in Taurus, we've got Pluto mirror, opposite, as it was in World War II. It was in Leo. It went into Leo just when World War II began. So we've got a lot of mirroring going on. And so that's brought all that up too. And interestingly, with world events, there's so many documentaries on there about World War II. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's like Hitler's on there all the time. It's like they're trying to remind us, okay, this is what happened. Let's not go there. And look, we know we're not going to go there. But on the other hand, it's as though this has to be confronted. What was that? Where did that is something we have to confront in humanity. And it's sort of, we swept it under the carpet and thought, oh, well, that's all over. That's nothing to do with us. That's the past. But actually, it's in our psyches. It's in the shadow. It's something that has to be dealt with and remembered. And so we can actually really move on from this time. So the reminders aren't comfortable, but they are coming up for a reason. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, it's all about letting go of these repressive, oppressive systems in our psyche and in the world. And I just watched a beautiful talk by Gabor Mate. He just has written this book, The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. I have not yet read it, but I will definitely read it. And it's all about this idea that we are living in a culture, in a society that is maybe normal, but not natural. And I think that Pluto, between Capricorn and Aquarius, he has this huge opportunity to come back to what is actually natural, even though in the first moment it does not feel normal. And I think that we are, over lifetimes, got so used to lifestyles, to systems, to structures, just in our everyday life, how we oppress and repress our own physical needs because we think we must work in a certain way, in a certain time frame on the day.
It's like we bought all this, like Michael was saying, it's like a delusion that and like you were saying, Robin, too, a delusion that we've bought it, haven't we? And it's like, what? Just a minute, why did we buy that?
Yeah, and it's an oppressive system on a very individual level, where we are our own oppressor because we are so conditioned to do so, and we are actually not realizing. And this is in the microcosm, what is going on in the macrocosm. And I think that we can revolution starts with every individual soul. So when everyone does their healing work, we can actually really step forward.
And more of us will start to do that. At the moment, though, what we see is the ones who, the masses haven't got to that yet. And so they are reacting from another level. They're reacting from a point where they haven't realized that this has come up because it needs letting go of, and we didn't understand it before, and we were in denial, and that's why it's here. But they don't realize that. They think, oh my God, what's happening? And they're just reacting. So we need to be mindful of that's what's happening. But on another, it's like there's two polarities going on, isn't it? It's yeah, definitely. It's like on one end, there's the consciousness is rising, and a lot of people have got a hold of that, and they're rising up with it, ascending, I guess. And the others are sort of in confusion, and some of them are still in the patriarchal web, where they're and even the the implementers of it.
Well, they're resisting. They're trying to hold on.
Well, yeah, they
Fast.
don't want to let go of that. I mean, they've got it good, so but not for much
Even if
longer.
they haven't, I
Yeah.
think some people just they don't see the way to get past their fear of change. So they just want to cling to what feels stable.
Yes. Yeah, there was all that talk of the pandemic, like we want to get back to normal.
Right.
And yeah, and then the realization sort of it never was going to be normal, and maybe it
Well,
wasn't
it's
normal
like
before.
somebody
It never
who's in
was
a
normal.
like somebody who's in an abusive, toxic relationship, and
Yeah.
they're being abused, but they stay with their abuser.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that's all. That's sometimes because they can't see the level of abuse. They can't see how much, you know, they're in the muck, or because there is a pull, you know, on some abusive relationships, there is a karmic, not karmic, but there is, not to use that word as punishment, you know, from past lives, but there is something that has to be learned by people, and the souls get together, and as though you can't. And I was in a relationship like that myself. I couldn't get free of it. And I really tried to use my conscious mind. And I realized I could not get free until I went through the steps. And that pushed me. Luckily, I was in astrology already, and I reached for astrology, but I also reached for every other tool, as we're saying, of consciousness that I could get, because I realized I was not going to get out of this in a practical, conscious way. I had to go really pull back into myself and reach for everything I could spiritually and work through it. And it was hard, but then once I did that, and I think that's sort of what's going on as you said, Robin, it's going on a wide collective level now. It's as though we can't do that. We can't just exit. We have to go through what we're going through, as we just said. We have to reach spiritually and trust that we will be sort of guided through it, and everything has a timing.
And it's so interesting that you are just saying that, and that you are just talking about that, and we know that the South Node moves into Libra in summer.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I mean, then the whole Pluto and Libra generation will get their healing after the whole Pluto and Scorpio generation now got their healing, and all of these past life trauma things are coming up. So, and this all in the time, I mean, these are the generations that are now very alive, and this happens all in the time frame when Pluto is in between Capricorn and Aquarius. I think that there is something about the trauma needs to come up, and I just experienced my South Node going through over my Pluto, so it was a journey. But I think that it is important that we are doing this healing work. Yes. And I think that what we see is, I think, this, on the one hand, there is an up-leveling or the rise of consciousness. And I think that it is important that we don't support a split. I mean, every soul is on their individual journey, but I think that it's not about leaving behind people.
No,
it's really about rising the consciousness of the collective in a way. Yeah.
And that's the thing. And once you get to the next level, then I mean, you know, you have regrets to your life, and you have regrets of relationships or whatever. But then once you get to a certain level, you think, actually, you know, everything had its perfect timing. And what if you hadn't gone through that, then you wouldn't be where you are now. You would have the realizations, you wouldn't have the perspective. And that's very much Aquarius air, isn't it? It's like, whoa, there's the air, there's the perspective that you didn't have before. But it's only until you process the emotions, all that Piscean water, that you can actually get there. Process the emotions. Okay, that's regretful, but then even the regret goes. It's very strange, but it's wonderful. Yeah.
And also remember that the north nodes of Pluto and Saturn are in Cancer. So, you know, that you know, prompts us toward inclusion, not exclusion.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and the return to a more cyclical way of living, away from this linear hierarchical way of living, and more coming back to cycles, to circles, to a spiralic way of living, and away from this completely unnatural push mentality that there is just one way and this is the way forward. Really coming back to this natural cycles where you have the dark moon phase as well, where you release and die and let go so that you can be reborn. And it feels for me very much that we are collectively in the dark moon phase where the old, can be released so that the new can be born. And this is actually a very fertile phase that we are in.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, exactly. And you can't see everything. You can't know everything that's ahead, but you just trust it. Yeah, you just trust that it's in the pipeline. Yeah, great. Did we want to say anything else, or shall we move on now? I think that's reassuring.
Those North Node of Pluto and Saturn being in Cancer, I think, offers some hope.
Exactly. I mean, it's full of hope, but it is like we don't realize how now much better equipped we are to absorb the bumps and say, okay, this change is happening. Because our perspective has changed so much already. I guess that's what we'll see as Pluto goes through Aquarius. We'll just realize, my God, our perspective, as Anthony laid that question, how has your perspective changed over all the years? Well, it has enormously. I think for most people it's changed, and that's not just getting older and wiser and the years and everything. I mean, I didn't feel very wise for a long time, and I don't feel wise now, but I feel a lot wiser than I was. It feels like, whoa, I didn't see it that way, and suddenly it's click, click, click. Suddenly change, and it's great. Anyway, so your earthquake, Michael.
Oh, my earthquake.
Your earthquake.
Well, I was here and experienced it, but I don't consider it my earthquake. But in a certain sense, it is all of our earthquake, if you will. So, there's the obvious Uranus square moon, okay? And so this Aquarian shakeup, if you will, of the Earth and the moon. It's in Aquarius, so you have this, this speaking together, wanting to shake things up, and that's sort of on the obvious side. And in looking at this, I was finding that Ceres, which an asteroid, which also has to do with the Earth, and it's like the nurturing aspect of Earth, and it's in Libra, and which has to do with our interconnections and our interrelations and communication with each other. And this is the midpoint between Uranus and the moon square, but on the opposite side. And it's interesting that what was happening here for it's been a long history. The indigenous people here have been oppressed for a long time. Though the one thing that attracted to me in my search for different countries to live in this part of the world was that the indigenous were still had a very living presence in daily life. And but even so, there are lots of problems, and it's only been fairly recently. In February, there was a presidential election, and there are all kinds of promises being made, and there are all kinds of the indigenous. If they don't like something, they'll hold these huge protests. Block the freeways, burn tires, and all this. And so there's a little bit of that the previous October. They didn't do it when they said they were going to do it. But what I find is that this, because you can say in a certain way the indigenous people here are spokespeople for the earth, for Mama Pachamama. And so the series is, in opposition also to the Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter a little bit more widely. And it's also square Mars and in conjunct Saturn. And so you can say that what was not really dealt with in a positive way in the social realm, okay, needed a shakeup. And it's just my view on these things that, these natural disasters are connected with our lives, our human lives, especially collectively. And so there's that. Also the Black Moon Lilith is in opposition to Saturn. And you can say what was really neglected in this realm of Mother Earth, okay, the feminine aspect in nature and in life is, being ignored in a certain way and being controlled, Saturn. I feel like that's definitely part of this. And as is there's our friend Eris is involved with this. Ceres is in a kind of a wide opposition to Eris. And in my studies of Eris, it's there's the ancient Greek mythology with Eris, but that story over time, I've talked about this before, it got transferred and translated into the fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty, where there was the fairy god. All the fairies, were invited to the birth, except for one, right? This neglected grandmother, and she comes anyway. She crashes the party, and she's making herself known, and she gives a gift, but it's one that provides a real challenge, which actually leads to a rebirth of sorts. But it's this aspect of what is not being recognized by people on Earth, here in this particular place, and Cuenca is not the capital, Quito is, but it was felt there. But you can say the cultural center of Ecuador is here in Cuenca. And it's called the Athens of Ecuador. And so it carries something about the voice of all the people. So anyway, for as strong as it was, it created damage. Things, most of the damage were parts of buildings were falling down, and then hitting people, from above in a certain way. I mean, I don't know exactly how the one man died. He got hit from above, but it could very well be that he came above and an Aryan hit on the head. Some big cornerstone.
There was only one death. That was lucky, at least.
Yeah. One death here in Cuenca.
Right. Why is that? Is that because the buildings weren't high rises or something, or?
Well, there's a not a law, but I forgot what you call it. But anyway, you cannot build above a certain over 6 stories. That's one reason. And we're up here at 8,000 feet, but it's not real easy on a hilly country to be building a lot of high rises.
Sure.
But most of the damage was on the coast, south and east.
It wasn't like the Turkey-Syria earthquake where a lot of people were buried. Terrible.
Right. No, and you can imagine that the building codes in Syria, Turkey, are not so stringent, and here they're not either. And anyways, I'm digressing here because that was one of the reasons why there was so much damage. the earthquake 9 years ago on the coast, because no building codes, and the cement, the builders were taking sand from the beach to make cement, and of course that has salt in it, you know. You know, so you get that. So anyway, my main point that I keep on coming to is how you know, the earthquakes and volcanism also is related to how people interact with each other, and how we interact with the earth. And it reflects that, at the very least.
Yeah. It's interesting on there also, the moon is at 16 Aquarius, and on the Turkey, Syria, it was full, and it was at Leo, 16 Leo. So directly opposite. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, exactly.
I'll just wait until Pluto hits 16 degrees Aquarius.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Wow. Yes. Well, we don't want to go there yet. But, yeah, we've got that to look forward to. But let's hope. We'll have gone through a lot of stages before that happens. So, but yeah. But also that Mars squaring, as we said, to square to Neptune, and that's applying to it then, wasn't it? Wow. No, it's just past it. It's just past it. Yeah, because it was exact on March 15th, I think, wasn't it, Sue? Because you did a lot of work with Mars Neptune, didn't you? Or was it Mars and Gemini? Your Mars Gemini thing? Was it Mars Neptune? You did Mars retrograde.
Gemini.
In Gemini, yeah. It was probably a day or two before this that it
15th,
perfected.
Yeah, 15th.
But it was applying to a square to the sun and to Mercury.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think what is so interesting, Michael, what you just said about Ceres and Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, and our relationship to the Earth. I work with other asteroid goddesses, and I just want to mention that we also have Black Moon Lilith conjunct Persephone on 2-degree Virgo retrograde as well. And we have an exact in conjunct between Chiron and Aries to asteroid goddess Lilith, also retrograde in 14-degree Virgo. And how I feel, especially, I think it's so interesting that Persephone and Black Moon Lilith are in opposition to Saturn, because, I mean, who is Persephone? Persephone is the queen of the underworld and the goddess of spring. So she really lives in the underworld. She is down below the surface. And I think that there is something, her mother, Ceres, asteroid goddess Ceres, the Earth mother, is involved in that too. And Lilith, who is really about building our own paradise and leaving seeming paradises that are actually oppressive systems, are so strongly involved in this earthquake. And I really have the feeling that there is, and again, asteroid goddess Lilith on 14-degree Virgo in a trine to Venus. Oh no, sorry, Black Moon Lilith and Persephone in a trine to Venus and Taurus. So there is, like, the Earth is speaking to us that we are the Earth. We are actually the Earth. And I think that these earthquakes, I mean, they are terrible, and I don't want to belittle them in any way, or the suffering of people that are experiencing them, but it's really like the Earth is speaking to us, and the Earth is saying, I am you, we are all one, and we are made from Earth. And how we treat our body, and how we treat our other humans, and how we treat animals, and how we treat the Earth, it's all connected. And it's really waking up, and the Earth is shaking us up. And we just talked about Pluto and Aquarius, about waking up and building and creating a new world. And now the Earth is shaking. So I think that there is that there is something to heal here too. And as I said before we started the recording, an earthquake is really about, it's triggering our deep, deep root chakra issues. It's really the ground is shaking. And I think that there must be, that there must come something from below the surface that shows up so that we can heal the root of our fears and that we can create a new relationship to each other, to the earth, and really understand that we are living on planet Earth. We are not living.
Well, that's the thing. And we seem to have lost that connection with Earth, don't we? We have.
Yeah.
And it has really happened. Yeah. So we've lost the connection and the, feeling that we were connected and sacred, that the earth is sacred and that we're part of it. And the cycles obviously are part of that. And astrology shows the cycles. And yet, and we all are so probably used to observing the cycles and observing astrology and feeling that makes you realize you are part of it and makes that it's hard for us to think of others who don't, especially governments and builders and people who actually go, and all these big corporations who go against the earth and have done all this disrespect, to say the least, to the earth.
Well, look at how people disrespect their own bodies.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
Habits, alcohol, cigarettes, bad food. I mean, all the things that people do.
And yet the astrology continues and the message comes through. I misspoke about the Mercury and the Sun applying to Mars. It had already, they were already separating from their square. So to me, this is a message that we need to pay attention.
Yeah, everything is showing us, isn't it? Everything, as you say, is actually saying, look, that the earth is going through its process too. It's traumatic for the earth.
Respect for
our trauma is the earth's trauma,
and each other.
Yes, exactly. And we have to get back to that respect of it. And that awareness is getting higher and higher, isn't it? It's more and more. But as that grows, as we were saying, we've also got the horror, and as Michael was saying, of the lies and the exploitation and all of it, the extent. I mean, really, most of us didn't really know the extent of this, how much exploitation and abuse there has been of the earth and the animals.
Well, all of that realization actually really started in the 60s when Pluto was in Leo.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's sort of, exactly, which is, 20 years after the Second World War, when there was a completely different attitude then. But it was after the Second World War that then it's as though after recovering from that, we got in the governments and the companies, corporations got in a new stage of exploitation that sort of mounted for 20 years, didn't it? And now we're seeing how much was done and how much has gone on since then. I mean, wow, it's enormous. But confronting that, so it's better to see it than not. It's as hard as it is, and as you said, Verena, with earthquakes, it's terrible. But but also there was a respect for even earthquakes. They were seen as, even the earth is sacred and you're going to get earthquakes. They are part of the cycle. It's when you disrespect, you go against the law and you sort of build buildings that you shouldn't be building for money, for profit, and don't expect the cycle. What is this lack of expectation of it happening? I mean, they happen. It's that though the companies have been in denial, governments have been in denial, and we've been denial in us, as we said, our trust of governments, ignoring the cycles completely, saying, okay, we'll just build more and more, we'll just exploit more and more, we'll just go up and up and up with our comfort zones.
Don't build nuclear power plants and earthquake fault lines.
Forgetting everything. Forgetting the natural cycle and the earth and the sun, for goodness sakes, and the planets that so much bigger than us, so much bigger than them, the governments or anything,
And I think it's so interesting. Yeah, I think it's so interesting that asteroid goddess Lilith is in 14-degree Virgo in conjunct to Chiron and Aries.
Yeah.
So I think it's really about this, how this leadership and this do we want to really be in tune and in alignment with the earth, or do we want to repress and oppress? So how does it, what does it mean to be a conscious leader, to be a conscious, to be a conscious individual in a way? And I think it's what you said with this sadness that comes. I think we are talking about Ceres. We are talking about Persephone. It's about the eternal cycles, and what is really interesting is that asteroid goddess Hecate is in 29-degree Gemini.
Oh, really? Wow.
Conjunct Mars and in a square to Mercury and the Sun. And she is the goddess of the dark moon. So
Yes,
she knows about the eternal cycles of life and death. And she knows that we need change. We need this,
and
this
to learn to respect
feeling.
again. Exactly. And that is growing. But as it grows, we just have to realize again that we're going to have this imbalance, and it's not going to change overnight. We can't be naive about this. It is not going to happen straight away. We do have to go through this process, and that can be frustrating. You know, we can see that it's frustrating for a lot of us, thinking, God, how do we stop this, and how do we change it? And with a lot of, you know, young people who are campaigning against climate change and everything, and you can understand why they're so frustrated. But then it is important to realize that this is a very, very old cycle, and it takes a lot, as we just said, of patience, and just keep going towards it. And it is changing. We have to notice. We have to notice the changes, but take notice of also the, you know, the earthquakes and the storms and everything that's happening. Really is just teaching us and showing us another perspective of the kaleidoscope, another angle that we need to process. Yeah, wonderful. Shall we go on to the next? We'll breeze through the next earthquakes quickly then.
I just wanted to say one idea, but it's just in general. Because you said the young people who want to change something. I mean, that is the Pluto and Sagittarius generation.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested. I'm really, really excited about the beautiful, beautiful souls that are now coming down to Earth with Pluto and Aquarius.
Yes, exactly.
So when they will come to age, I think that will be powerful. So because the souls that are born in the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius, so it's like the embodiment of this transit, so it will last even longer. So that will be interesting.
But everyone else behind them who's gone before has to realize, everyone, you know, generation, the younger to the older generations, has to do the groundwork now. We have to do our bit of groundwork, because this is going towards that, and hopefully making it easier for them. Yeah, exactly.
This is kind of off topic, but around that, it really comes up for me. Like, I think about my daughter and my child, and how to support her with things like technology, when like every single day there's a new technology coming out. I'm like, oh, now people are talking about how Google is going to become redundant, and now it's all going to be Chat GPT and AI. Like, all of a sudden, these things that we thought that we were all ahead, and now it's going to be completely different. And it's like not wanting to keep her like away from those things out of any fearful thinking about it, but just being so present, because I'm learning about it too. So just on that really practical level of like how to parent and how to be, because it's so new and it's so different. And it's so interesting, like the piece of parenting in the astrology being connected to that Cancer Capricorn axis. It's almost like, so to be a good parent, you have to have boundaries and like be able to show up with consistency. But Aquarius is like, but then there's freedom. But then there's this like chaos, this liberation of the old structure. So what's the fine line? What's the balance when it comes to like being a teacher, you know, would be another example of, you know, caring for the young kids. Like what do we get to keep that makes sense from the Capricorn, what we've been learning, and what then do we get to shift in with the Aquarius? So it feels like it all comes together so well.
It does,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah. But the
And I think
Capricorn Saturn is discipline, isn't it? It's discipline, it's discernment. Yeah. So it's necessary with all of this going on that we discern what, as you said, what do we keep? What do we channel? What do we discipline ourselves with? And it's really important to do that, because it's like overwhelm. Otherwise, it's overkill and overwhelm and too much.
Or it
And
could
I
be
think it's
like
all
the mad
about-
scientist. Like
Oh,
the mad
wonderful.
scientist needs to be kept in check a little bit.
Exactly.
And I think it's all about structures that allow us to grow.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's about finding these structures, these loving Cancers, Capricorn structures that allow us to grow and to evolve, but are like a safe haven in a way, or like the river that flows through the bed. And I think that there is something around that Saturn is traditionally the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius, because for me it's really mirroring that there are structures that are natural. Our whole nature
and boundaries are necessary.
So
you must have boundaries.
Structures and boundaries are nothing unnatural. It's just about what kind of structures, and are there structures that are flexible and can flow and grow?
Are they supportive or are they restrictive, and are they oppressive even? So it's that discernment, and it's so necessary, but wonderfully too. I mean, obviously the climate change is very hard to handle, especially for the young who think that they've been let down by the older generations, and of course they have, but then they should know, as I said, that the older generations go back thousands of years. It's not just, the last ones. And it's built up over the years. It's sort of been a natural progression, an unnatural progression, but natural for human beings. But it's wonderful now, even though the climate change is so horrible, that there is an interest in nature that is really growing, so knowing that it's so precious, that education now and that conservation that's going up, and so much interested in ecology in the world, and the cycles, as we said, and astrology too is growing as well. So it's as though it's coming together, and it's changed from probably when we were kids, when I was kid, we were talking about Michael and the rest of us, not you guys, but when it was just about the latest gadget and about the music and about what was going, but we weren't that connected with nature. But now, because it's in danger, in some ways it's reconnect, and we have to reconnect to it. I mean, I loved nature naturally, but it wasn't, most of the kids, it wasn't their main, and it hasn't been for a long time. Now it's different, and I think there is such a huge interest in it, and it has to be, because it's endangered. But that's a good thing too, and innovation there's so much we could put our minds to and put technology to actually help nature, and we have to now, because we're on the borderline, we're at crisis. So anyway, that's the Turkey-Syria earthquake, and it has a lot of, obviously it would have a lot of similarities to the Ecuador earthquake. And the sun, obviously, was opposite, it's a full moon. Interestingly, the other one in 1939 was a full moon as well. And obviously you've got Pluto, and you've got it squaring, oh God, what was it squaring? Someone help me out there. Can't pick it out. They're squaring something. Well, Uranus is squaring anyways. Uranus was squaring the moon, obviously, and the sun. It's T-square. And then there's that Mars going in, applying to the square of Neptune. And this, I mean, it's so similar to the other things, it's hardly worth mentioning, because you've got the nodes there at 7 Taurus, etc.
I think the addition here, the important addition here is the Venus square Mars.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Absolutely.
And applying to Neptune, and Mars applying to Neptune.
Yeah. Exactly. So what was it I wanted to say about that? I wanted to say, yeah, well, it's the Mars Neptune that I was really interested in, because we talked about that, as I said last year, when you were talking about Mars going retrograde, and then it went retrograde in the autumn. I think it was the end of October, and then Neptune did the same thing when it did its retrograde at the same degree, like 25, 26 of Pisces and Gemini. And so it's come back, and they've both actually, when they were exact this time on the 15th of March, they were back at their shadow points. So it's been a really, really important dance between them. And we talked also that, interestingly, the last time you got that sort of thing was back in 1820, I think you said. There was a period between 1812 and 1820, and that's when electromagnetism was discovered. So there is a connection, it seems, between Mars in Gemini and Neptune. Neptune then was in Virgo, opposite. So, but it was the same sort of connection, which is easy.
And similar eclipses too. That was what my point was about, was the Mars retrograde correlated with a very similar set of eclipses.
Yes. So
I think it was 1817.
Yes. Yeah. So it's that period. And so it's sort of come back up again, but then of course we got the Carrington event, as we were just saying. I don't know if you want to put that chart up for the Carrington event. That's the other. Should we just quickly? I'll just quickly look at that other earthquake.
Oh, okay.
We'll look at this. It's great. So the Carrington event was a solar flare, similar to the one we just had. Again, they all seem to be coming at the same time. So the solar flare was on March 12th, and that was just 3 days before the Mars square Neptune. And so I think we'd said, would there be some sort of a discovery then, or would there be something about science? And it turned out, no, there wasn't a discovery, but there was an electromagnetic event. And obviously a solar eruption is a very huge electromagnetic event. And so was this was the Carrington event. And so they're all sort of connected. The earthquakes in the lead up in February, and there actually is a correlation between solar eruptions and earthquakes and volcanoes, and obviously climate.
Shall I read the little blurb about what the Carrington event was?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
On Thursday, September 2nd, 1859, at roughly 11:18 a.m. in the town of Red Hill, outside London, Carrington was investigating a group of dark specks on the sun known as sunspots, when he detected what he later described as a singular outbreak of light, which lasted about 5 minutes. This was the first solar flare ever seen and reported, according to a 2016 study in the journal Advances in Space Research. Magnetic sensors in the Kew Observatory in London detected extraordinary magnitude disturbances on Earth from August 28th to September 7th that year, especially on August 28th and September 2nd. These coincided with what may arguably have been the most intense auroras in the past 160 years, the 2016 study noted. Luminous waves, this is all from Wikipedia, by the way. Luminous waves rolled up in quick succession as far as the zenith, some of brilliancy sufficient to cast a perceptible shadow on the ground.
Wow.
The colorful displays were so bright that people in Missouri could read by the atmospheric light after midnight, according to an 1859 report in the Weekly West newspaper. Gold miners in the Rocky Mountains woke up and made coffee, bacon, and eggs at 1 a.m. local time, thinking the sun had risen on a cloudy morning. So it was spectacular. And what I've also read is, were that to happen now,
Yeah,
it would, I mean, at that time, it disrupted telegraph services. But were
sure.
it to happen now, it would disrupt telephones, satellites,
Well, everything. We're so dependent.
electricity, our electrical grid. I mean,
Yeah.
everything.
And what about nuclear power plants, cooling? I mean, everything is, yeah. I mean, it's so
Roads, yeah.
it would have a deficit. And the thing is, you don't know how long. Luckily, that was a week, but these events could go. You don't know how long they could last. And it all depends. It depends on the sun and, you know, what happens. So we haven't really been, that's another thing we haven't been in touch with. We really haven't considered any of that. It's just weird. So
Yeah,
going, yeah,
the
yeah.
one thing that I noticed is, for one thing, Neptune is right about where it was.
Yes.
Is right about now where it was then.
Exactly.
And then
Isn't that amazing?
Uranus is in Gemini,
Yeah.
which
and look at, yeah.
it will be.
And Mars is at 25, that 25, 26 degrees again, you know, and it's at quincunx. It's quincunx to Neptune. So it's like, whoa, yeah, and all that in Aquarius too. Chiron's in Aquarius, conjunct the North Node. Yeah, and of course, Pluto there is at 8 degrees Taurus. So it was in Earth again. So it's as though, yeah, a connection to the Earth, and yeah, exactly.
Right, and widely square the nodes. I mean,
yes,
it was approaching the square to the nodes.
Yes, exactly. So the node's very similar to you know, Pluto's degree then. It's 7 now. That was 8, and we've just had this huge event, which was, you know, they didn't play it down in NASA. They said this was huge, and if this would have hit us, you know, whoa, it was massive.
And
so
what was your comment that it was on the other side of the sun?
It was on the other side of the sun.
The recent one, right?
Yes, and the one it was on 12th of March. So it's as though the sun started to be active, and they knew the sun had started to be active. And so even that green comet, you know, the green comet, which I mentioned, which first appeared on 12th of January, which was when Mars went stationary direct. So the green comet appeared at the same time. Then Mars in Gemini is involved with that again. And green, of course, because I did think at the time, green, you know, anything green is sort of to do with, I forget what it is. It's like not magnesium or something, but it is to do with the electromagnetic pulses, you know, the telluric rays and all that stuff. But green, so it's a green comet. It's like that was suspect, I thought at the time. Weirdly, on the 12th of March, my electricity blew as well. I don't know if that was anything to do with it, but
who knows?
I mean, we are on ley lines. We're on very powerful ley lines here, but so who knows? But anyway, yeah, so it's amazing, isn't it? So, I mean, no one's ever told us really about that. I knew about the Carrington event, but I didn't know that this was something that, I mean, could happen any time, particularly where you do get signs now, and they have been watching the sun very closely. Obviously, everyone probably here knows about the solar minimums and solar maximums with the sunspots and all of that. But generally, we don't really know about that, and yet scientists are getting more and more interested in it. Again, you've got a polarity. You've got scientists who are saying, look, really take notice of this solar minimum and maximum. We're going into it. In fact, we are in a solar minimum now. And this is this event we just had with the solar flares, because they're all sort of associated. So you get solar minimums and maximums, you get solar flares associated, you get all these things, and you get storms as well, storm events, and you get earthquakes. So, and it's all basically electromagnetism and the effects of the sun and our orbit, Earth's orbit, and, you know, the Earth's core, for God's sakes, the whole thing. And it's all a wonderful cycle and a delicate balance. It's amazing, actually. That, again, I wasn't fully aware of, and I don't think many of us are. And yet I've done astrology for years, but now realizing the orchestration and even the planets, that Saturn and Jupiter are actually very much to do with pulling the Earth's orbit, so that in fact, Jupiter, a lot of people know that Jupiter is a big protection as well against asteroids and meteors. So it's all an incredible cycle that's just much huger than most people imagine, but we are part of it, just like the Earth. We're part of this cycle, and yet we are, it's not taught in the schools or anything. We're oblivious to this, and yet we're going to feel the effects. And we did feel the effects of that, and yet actually there were nice effects mostly, except for knocking some satellites out, and people admired the aurora borealis, but they didn't realize, oh, that's wonderful and pretty, but it actually was a near miss. It's incredible. So anyway,
well, perhaps with Pluto and Aquarius, we'll learn more about all of these phenomenon.
I think we are. I think we're going to have to, because that's another thing we haven't been in touch with, and we need to broaden our perspective and get in touch with it all. The ancients were, which is a thing, that's why I got really interested in what's happening with these cycles and the solar minimums and maximums, because the ancients were in touch with them all, and that's why they record, they did so much to record it and develop the zodiac, and the precession is to do with it as well, the cycles. So they knew about all these cycles, and they were very respectful of the sky as well as the earth, and we lost all that. So big deal. So it's amazing. But we are in a solar minimum now. There was a little chart there.
Oh, you want me to share that again?
Just that little chart at the end. Little graph, I think it was. I think it's at the end, is it? Just at the bottom. Yeah. So we're actually in solar cycle 25. And it's very similar to the Maunder minimum, and that interestingly, that other earthquake in Turkey, that was in Turkey, the strong one, did take place during the Maunder minimum, although it was towards the end, I guess. No, it wasn't. It was in the middle. But anyway, so it's similar to the Maunder minimum, the cycle we're in now, cycle 25. We actually entered it in 2020. But we haven't really felt the effects, and we're not going to feel the effects yet, although some scientists do believe that the storms, the storms, huge snowfall that was in the US, and the extreme temperatures. So at one end of the country you get weird snowfall, huge snowfall, even in California, and then at the other end of the country you get high temperatures, didn't you? Just way off the scale for the time of year. And so they're saying that this is starting to, come in. So the interesting thing is the Maunder minimum was like a mini ice age. So it's cold. So what we've got is two things happening. So we've got climate change, which is going to bring in it's melting glaciers, and has brought that in. That's that problem. But at the same time, we're getting the ice age. Now, some scientists are saying, well, it's going to cancel it, it'll offset the damage we've done with the global warming. But there are others that are saying, no, it won't, that we will get exactly what we've just seen. We will get extreme temperatures. So we're going to see temperatures off the scale, some places hot. We're going to see glacial temperatures in other places. They say that obviously the solar cycle will predominate. So in some ways that could be a good thing, because it gives us a chance to get everything, to make the differences we need to make to combat global warming, because we're nowhere near prepared. And things are getting quicker and quicker, and the climate is just going off the scale. And so maybe it's sort of fortuitous that we're getting the solar minimum now, as hard as that might be, because that's going to bring problems in some places. But it could give us a chance. As I say, it could give us a chance to actually make the differences that we need to make. So I think we need to see it that way. But again, it's something I didn't even realize what was happening. And there's a very good scientist, actually, if anyone wants to look it up, Valentina Zarkova, and professor, she's in Northumberland, I think. Yeah, university in England. But she's very knowledgeable about the solar minimum. And she says it's very hard to get the establishment to listen, because you get the same thing as in everything. They're just not listening. They won't listen. And what we do need to do is very, very carefully balance our fossil fuels and not let go of all of them straight away, because we are going to need heat in some places. So we need to take everything into account. We need to make the changes, but we need to make them really carefully and considerately and take everything, into account. So,
And
so we're getting the science,
and we also need to have, clear information, which is something that has been a big issue, recently.
Terrible.
And there's and the overload of information.
Yes.
That people just kind of throw up their hands, say, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to do. So
that's right. That's right. So at least the internet's such a wonderful tool to go and look yourself, but don't believe the first thing you hear, and don't get into,
There's a lot of conflicting information.
Conjecture. Actually look for, and corroborate it, really investigate. But if you do, then you sort of see, just a minute, why didn't the governments, why haven't they responded to this? It's like everything's been left to the last moment, and now we've got global warming and a mini ice age on the threshold.
Well, yeah, and I doubt that they'll cancel each other out. That's just my gut feeling that we're just. So. I agree with you. We're going to have extremes on both ends.
But at least that one, looking at the positive side, that will force governments and corporations and everyone to act, because it's going to be in our faces and we will have to act. So, hopefully. Yeah, I think we have to look at it that way. It's sort of, I think, part of Pluto in Aquarius. It's like, it's saying, just a minute, observe nature. Aquarius is about nature too. Respect.
What the solar cycle chart reminds me of is a biorhythm. It's like the sun's biorhythm.
It's funny you said that, because NASA said another thing on here. And they said they've detected a pulse in, like, the sun when they really investigated this solar eruption, this huge one. They said it's a pulse they've detected. It's like a heartbeat. It's like a boom, 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 boom. And it's like a heartbeat. It's like the sun is alive. Isn't that incredible? It's like, it
is alive.
It is alive. But it's really, it's like, whoa. Wonderful. It's wonderful and it's awe-inspiring, and we just have not to be at first I thought, whoa, that's going to be tough, but then I thought, well, just a minute, maybe that will pull things up, because there is there's no choice now but for none of this greenwashing. I can't believe that. Greenwashing, all these corporations lying about all the ecological stuff they're doing.
Pretending to be ecologically sound,
and they're not.
To make money.
Well, Pluto's going to put a stop to it all, so it's good.
We have such high expectations for Pluto and Aquarius.
Well, we've got to grab the bull by the horns, or the Pluto by the horns, and go with it.
Anyway,
that's Uranus and Taurus.
Anyway, Anthony would be mortified because we've gone way over, I suppose.
Yeah, we're really almost we're approaching 2 hours now, so we probably got to wrap it up.
The cat's away. Nice one. But that was really good. That was really good.
It was a pleasure, and as always, and we'll schedule again for a couple of months, and
great.
Do it again.
Yeah, keep on this.
Thanks, Michaela. Thanks,
Thanks so much, Sue.
Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
We're-
Thank you.
It's just us three left, so I
Yes.
guess it is the Gemini moons.
Yeah, we don't give up.
True,
easy.
true.
Great. See you
Bye.
later.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.